The KDKA Sports Desk is brought to you by Xfinity.
All right, welcome back to Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bucco Fever is pretty much over. The Pirates lose today by the score of 2-1 to the Phillies, and they are 2-7 in their last 9 games since the All-Star break. They're 46-52, 7 games behind first place, not looking good. So I want to know, are they buyers or sellers right now? Definitely not buyers. How about sellers or standing pat?
Well, they're selling all.
Yeah.
They're selling all the expiring contracts.
You got to.
That's a given. Corey Dickerson, even if you like the player, you bring him back in the winter, you trade him now, and then you hope you re-sign him in February or whatever. I think Liriano, you won't get much, but somebody will want him because you can always use a lefty in your bullpen. Maybe somebody buys low on Lyles and tries to make him a relief pitcher like he was for the Brewers in the playoffs last year.
Cabrera,
I think Melky, you know what? I think Melky, he's got the postseason experience. He's somebody in a pinch hit role, or even you like the matchup against the pitcher. I think he could help somebody like David Freese did.
Yeah.
That type of player, like Freese was for the Dodgers going to the World Series last year.
Yeah, I think he's the most valuable of those guys on the expiring contracts. In my opinion, that's the guy Melky.
I think him or Liriano.
Maybe Liriano. All right. Mike Vernon just tweeted me, wants to know if I still
the old Red Wings goaltender?
No, Mike Vernon right here on Twitter.
Oh, okay.
MV Gunner 21 said, "Do you still have Bucco Fever?" No.
How about Marte? You trading him?
I would trade Marte. So here's who I would trade. Before we get to the phone calls, I'm trying to trade Marte, Felipe Vasquez. I'm trying to trade Jordan Lyles, Melky Cabrera, Corey Dickerson.
All right, but
all those guys.
Okay, so
even Liriano. I'm going to try to get as much as I can to compete next year.
Okay, but those guys are leaving anyways. If you're going to trade Vasquez and Marte, or you're going to pick one of the two?
No, I'm going to try to trade both because I think I can get enough back, and I don't think it's that big of a drop-off with Brian Reynolds in center field. He has a better bat than Marte right now. Maybe he doesn't have the home run production.
Okay, I agree with that, but the drop-off would not be so much Marte to Reynolds. If you move Reynolds to center, who takes Reynolds? If you move Reynolds to center, who takes his spot in left field?
Now, that's a good question. You have to go out and get maybe a young prospect.
Because that would be the drop-off. It would be Marte to the player that is going to replace
And if you
Reynolds
can't get a Corey Dickerson back, Jason Martin is a huge drop-off from whatever's out there. You already have Gregory Polanco, but I know we talked about this in the sports department. I mean, potentially, maybe this is not that far out there, but how about Kevin Newman in left field? Because you have Eric Gonzalez coming back. He potentially could play second base. You have Cole Tucker playing short next year. I want Kevin Newman's bat in the lineup.
That doesn't sound like a better team. You've already got a spot for Newman. He's a middle infielder. He hits like a middle infielder. He's a high-average guy with not a lot of power. You know, if Reynolds is going to move to center field, I've got to find an outfielder that is going to protect.
How about sign one? How about spend some money and sign an outfielder?
Yeah.
You know, how about if you're trading Vasquez, get a good starting pitcher that's coming back, get maybe another reliever that potentially can replace.
And if my wife dumps me, I want to go on a date with Kate Upton, but it's not going to happen. Seriously, you think if they traded Marte, they'd take the $10+ million and they'd give it to like one of the best outfielder free agents? Do you think that would really happen?
No, they wouldn't.
Neither do I.
No, but I would hope the return in Marte would be a younger version of
that's why
something like him.
My preference would be I would trade Vasquez, and if I was able to get enough back, I would keep Marte for at least one more year. And then I would see how it goes. If you still aren't ready, then maybe deal him at the trade deadline next year or deal him the following winter. But I would not totally tear it down, and I think you're going to basically rebuild if you trade Marte and Vasquez.
I don't think you're really tearing it down. I really don't.
You know what? I take that back. Because what are you tearing down? They're not a great team.
They're going to come back and be a 500 team.
That's what they are right now.
So your best bet at being better and building around Josh Bell in the next couple years is going out and trying to hit on a AAA guy that's a top prospect somewhere.
So that's your point. You're saying if you trade Marte and Vasquez, you're getting prospects, but you're not getting single-A prospects.
No, I want a guy that's
who are ready to play in the next year.
Or blocked. Like one of these guys could be blocked by the
Brian
Dodgers.
Giles was blocked.
Yeah.
So find a guy that, like Giles was in Cleveland. He was their fourth outfielder. He wasn't getting a lot of playing time. They get him for Rincon. It's an all-time steal. Find a guy that should be playing, like the Yankees outfielder, Frazier.
Yes,
He's
like
a
Clint
perfect
Frazier
example.
would be and Neil Huntington loves Frazier. They scouted him for the last couple of years.
They wanted him for Cole.
So I don't know what you could give the Yankees to try to get him, but they didn't the Yankees just demote him?
Well, what if you traded the Yankees Marte and got Frazier back and maybe another pitcher, a younger pitcher?
Well, I would do it, but wouldn't Marte be blocked out?
Why? Do you think Aaron Hicks is going to play center field over Marte? I think that might work. I think
Marte to the Yankees.
I think Marte to the Yankees for Frazier and one of their pitchers that's I don't know. I don't have a name in front of me right now.
Yeah, I know what you mean, though. I like it. I would do that. And then I would trade Vasquez to the Dodgers for their top pitcher and their top
and then
catching
you would
prospect.
feel like you replenished and the guys you have are on the verge of helping you in the next couple of years.
I would. I'd feel a lot more comfortable about going into next year than
But
where
then they
are
wouldn't
right
have
now.
a very big payroll, and they'd have to go out and at least find.
And maybe you would hope that they would spend the money to go try to find some depth, too.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's go out to Mike in Everett. What's up, Mike?
Hi, Mike.
Yes, several things. What makes you think Mitch Keller is going to be any different than the last bunch of Pirate pitchers that have come up under Rick Searage?
Well, who said that?
What's Josh Bell going to be? Is he going to be the 20 home run, 320 hitter, or is he going to be the 200 hitter that he's been for the past month?
Well, what do you think?
And also, what is Hurdle's fascination with Jung Ho that he's in the lineup every couple days instead of Adam Frazier?
Adam Frazier's in the lineup every day, right?
Well, I think the point is when there's a lefty on the mound, they'll bench Frazier and they'll have Gong start as a right-handed hitter against a lefty, which to me, they got to be getting close. I don't know what Gonzalez, I know he had like a brief setback, but when he's ready to go as like a do-it-all player who can play every position,
Gung's got to be the guy.
I think Gung's gone.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I mean, how long do you keep a guy on your team that's hitting 165,
and hits a home
now?
run one every
that's
many
it.
games. That's all he does.
That's more money. Again, not a big salary. But if you add him and Chisenhall up, that's almost $6 million down the drain.
Yeah, and
for nothing.
Yeah, and Cervelli. I mean, I thought that was a big contract when they gave it to him. They were stuck with him. They couldn't move him.
If you add up all that money, that's more than the Braves gave Keuchel.
Yeah.
If you add up Cervelli,
but we don't know if Keuchel could have. I know the Pirates weren't interested in Keuchel,
which is a problem in and of itself.
Them coming out and Frank Coonley coming out and saying that they weren't interested in him
is embarrassing,
or something like that. I think sends a message to the fan base again.
Right.
We're not trying to do anything. We're not trying to get better. All right, let's go out to Pete on Squirrel Hill. What's up, Pete?
Gentlemen, how are you tonight?
Good. How are you?
Two issues, if I may, Rich. Number one, Brian Reynolds is not a major league center fielder. He can't go back on the ball. Corner outfielder, yes, but not a center fielder. But I'm watching the game today. I don't know if you guys were at the ballpark or watching it, okay? Starling Marte leads off the bottom of the seventh, I think it was, with a single. Tries to stretch it into a double. Oversides the bag.
Yeah, bad slide.
Greg Brown comes on and says that major leagues organizations need to start to teach their players how to slide. Rich, if you're 25 and in Marte's case 30, and you don't know how to slide, just leave your gloves and your spikes in the basement and start
but hold on, it's not Marte. I mean, it's not just him. How about Dickerson, who almost broke his nose slide in Chicago last week, and the whole reason why Polanco got off to such a rotten, rocky start is because of his slide last year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's epidemic within their organization, which I agree with. It's completely unacceptable that you have major leaguers that don't know the fundamentals of how to slide.
All right, we got to take a break. Back with more of your phone calls. Some of your tweets coming up next. Stay right there.